This will revolutionize how you study Japanese. That's right, a dictionary. No, not this piece of shit. No, not your phone, and not even this cool DS dictionary I was using in Japanese school because they wouldn't let us use our phones. No, I'm talking about a proper instant dictionary for weeaboos. Let's talk about all of them. Once you reach a certain level of Japanese, the single most important thing you can do is absorb the language. That means reading lots of books, listening to lots of music, and yes, weebs, watching lots and lots of But there's one little hiccup with this approach. Let's say you're watching anime. When you get to a certain level, depending on what you're watching, you'll probably understand almost everything you come across, and you'll probably understand most of what you don't know just from context alone. But beyond stuff made for children, there's no way you'll understand 100% of what you hear. Traditionally, you might be tempted to pull out this bad boy. Imagine stopping, pulling out a dictionary, trying to make sense of Japan's ass-backwards kanji radical system, and looking up a word. Horrible. With your phone, this is a billion times faster, but it still takes you right out of the experience. Dear God, there's nothing worse than stopping mid-fap to look up some slang for butthole, am I right, guys? Probably the most relatable thing I've ever said. But with one of these bitches, you can wiggle your mouse as you wiggle your cock and fap at an almost native level pace. God, I have no idea how anyone learned Japanese 20 years ago. It would have taken so long to get off. Minutes, hours even. Oh my God. So let's talk about each of these dictionaries. First, the most versatile and simplest one is the mouse over dictionary. Now, I've been reading a lot of really old, forgotten visual novels on a PC98 emulator. And you wouldn't believe just how satisfying it is to fap to something that maybe no one outside of Japan has ever fapped to before. God, I love living in the future. So anyway, the big benefit to this one is there's dictionaries that'll parse images. I've been using one called Kanjitomo. The PC98 resolution is, and this is being generous, kind of low, so it's not 100% accurate, but even for this, it works great. So I guess it's kind of niche or whatever, but discovering a truly unique fap is like a lifelong goal for most people, and yet with this, anyone can do it. I feel like a fucking wizard, man. Or I guess you could use this to play games or read manga or whatever if you're a weeaboo. So there's probably similar, maybe even better mouse over dictionaries out there. But now let's move on to this Kindle. Now, as much as I like visual novels, I am a fan of holding a physical book. The thing with this is, you can't attach a dictionary to this. So this sucks. Maybe move into the 21st century, Violet Evergarden. The next best thing, however, is an e-reader, so I picked up one to read books in Japanese. There's lots of brands, but a Kindle is easily the best deal if you set foot anywhere near Japan, just because Japanese read a shitload, so there's like a lot of these you can find used on Mercari for pretty cheap. The Paperwhite seems to be the popular one because while the extra resolution might not matter for English, when you have kanji, you kinda need it. I picked up this bad boy for about 7,000 yen with a case, and you can attach a dictionary to it. Just tap and hold, and bam! Instant fap. Spice and wolf, more like spice and waifu, am I right? Yeah, baby, I can't tell you how good it feels to be able to fap with just one touch. Hey, listen, if I don't do it, how else are you gonna know whether or not it's worth it to get one? That's right, I'm doing this for you, you sick fuck. The last thing is for anime and I guess like 3D normie shit, if you're into that. Imagine all of this, but being able to use it on anime subtitles and not just books and shit. And being able to create your own flashcards with one click from any of these things. And here's where I need to tell you about an app called Yomichan. It's basically a mouse over dictionary integrated into your browser, but it can also create flashcards with just one click from websites, ebooks, and with the right add-ons, YouTube and Netflix videos. I made a video on Kohi Cafe and studying Japanese with books because context is key, and I just talked about immersing yourself in the language, and this is basically both of those two things combined. So basically read or watch whatever and then study it later with the context you gained. Brilliant, right? You can also do this with the aforementioned Kindle. Takes 1 or 2 extra steps because you need to move this to the computer, but very, very handy nonetheless. A couple caveats to Yomichan. One is that it needs text, so images are a no-go, and video would be too without the add-ons that turn it into text. So no hentai probably. Sorry, I know you can stop watching now, I understand. The other is that it is slightly jank and takes some setup, but once you get it going, it's very seamless as it integrates with Anki and will create customized flashcards with you with a single click. I have Yomichan set up to show me the word and the context sentence, and then on the back it'll have the English meaning. You can also do stuff like take audio for words and screenshots for when you're, say, watching Netflix. So that brings us to watching video. YouTube subtitles are text accessible, but Netflix is not. But it is with this cool add-on, Language Reactor, previously Language Learning with Netflix. This great app will show you the subtitles, and then it has a little bar on the side with all the subs together. And there's a function that'll actually hide the subtitles until you mouse over them, allowing you to focus on listening. Very handy. So you're saying that I can actually learn Japanese just by watching anime, and kind of. This comes with the caveat that for beginners, watching anime and stuff should be a review, not learning new material. Because if you're trying to look at stuff you don't know and create flashcards out of them, for beginners, what you don't know is going to be literally everything. Go study and then come back and watch anime, and start with stuff that is appropriate to your level. Watch this video to learn what kinds of anime you should be watching. I should mention that Language Reactor has their own flashcard integration that you can pay for, but you could just use Yomichan for free. So now let's talk about one last tool, and it's actually a paid app similar to Yomichan, and the developers actually offered to send me an affiliate link, but after trying it out a bunch, I really like it, but I don't think I can recommend it because it's missing way too much to offer anything close to my hearty recommendation. And in fact, I'm gonna shit on it a whole bunch in hopes they will fix all of these things because I really do like it, but there's just so many questionable decisions being made with it. And because while I do like theirs the best, you can basically do everything for free with Yomichan, so no free internet money for me today. But you know, shikata ga nai, as they say. The first thing I should talk about is what I really like about it, which is their player. Similar to Language Reactor, it can pause after every line, but it's also got a couple more features. Migaku can turn off subtitles until you pause it, which is better than blurring them because the keyboard is way faster. And you can set it to pause after it comes across a line containing a word you don't know. More on this in a second. For me, the subtitles unpaused is the best general one because it'll test the hearing and let me quickly get access to the kanji if I need it, but I can see a lot of these working for a lot of different people. So this is just a way better and more robust experience, which is questionable because Language Reactor's previous name was Language Learning with Netflix. That's the only thing you do. How is it that you're not the best at this? That's just sad. So you're probably wondering about that words you don't know thing. That's Migaku's other core feature besides creating flashcards at a single click. It'll keep track of the words you don't know so it can create even better flashcards and help you study more effectively. That is really cool and is poised to make Migaku the center of your language study. But the problem with this, and the reason I can't recommend it, is because it can only import words from Anki. If you've used literally anything else to study vocabulary, you can't use this feature. Case in point, I've used Anki to study textbook vocabulary, but I've learned probably half my vocabulary from Wanikani, which is like 8,000 words, and that's not even the only other thing I've used to study vocab. You'd think you could just take a text file and say, hey, I know these words, but no, you can't. And that would be fine if, like Yomichan, you could take the word and the context sentence, but Migaku only takes full sentences and then creates flashcards containing all the words you don't know. And if there are too many unknown words in it, the app crashes. Guys, most people do not only study language with Anki. Anki is great, sure, I've used Anki, sure, but there are like 10,000 words I know not from Anki, so I literally cannot use your app for its intended purpose. Fix this! It can't possibly take that much effort to implement this. Even the Kohi Cafe guy has done this with his website that he runs for free in his spare time. Sure, it's super jank, but this is really necessary, which is why it's in there. I brought this up to them and they were like, oh yeah, that's on the roadmap. What? How is literally being able to use your app not top of your priority list years into development? That's fucked. I have a couple more criticisms. There's a button that says give me the default settings for X language, but then you have to go and adjust the dictionary settings for card creation anyway. What does the default setup even do then? I should just be able to hit setup for Japanese and go to town, not follow a guide on your site. It's great to have customizable settings for cards, but if you have a default recommendation, just give me that. I don't know how I'm supposed to use your app. I'm an idiot. It's your job to decide this, not mine. And I get it that it connects to Anki, but any instructions for this should be given directly from the app. I know Yomichan is kind of jank, and I had to spend probably even more time figuring out how to set it up the way I wanted, but it's free. Yours isn't. This is 2022, not acceptable. And the player doesn't actually let you mouse over words to create cards, and instead will only take what's actively playing no matter where the mouse is. When asked about this, they said this is more intuitive, but given that this is how the reader works, they're definitely smoking crack here. If I'm the only one who assumed it works the same way as the reader, I'll eat this dojin on camera. There's this button you can click with the mouse, but you should really be able to use the keyboard like the rest of the app. So there are a couple other reasons to use Migaku I want to highlight here though. One is that Yomichan is only for Japanese, or theoretically Chinese too. There might be other free options for, say, French or something, but I wouldn't know. But also, Migaku has some super neat language-specific color coding features like pitch accent for Japanese or gender for Romance languages. That's cool as fuck. This'll make your eyes bleed at first, but you'll probably get used to it. And honestly, you might even want Migaku just for this, because that's honestly a super sick idea. Lastly, there's one more thing I want to criticize Migaku for, and that's their incredibly stingy free trial. It's only 7 days, and they even restrict some features with it. You know how long it takes to learn a language, right? You must. 7 days is like 5 minutes in language learning years. Why would your free trial be so stingy? It should be at least 3 weeks, ideally a month. Why? Because that's how long it takes to form a new habit. If you're going to be using a language app productively, you need to make it a habit, and 7 days is not nearly long enough to do that. Between this and the Anki thing, it's almost like you don't want people using your app. Seriously, if someone's gonna be using it, it's gonna be a long-term thing. You can be a little more lenient with your trial. Also, I'd like to see a free option like Language Reactor, where you can have just the dictionary and or the player for free, but all of the study features are paid. Because there are already free options for a Netflix player and for mouse over dictionaries and stuff. All you really need is something to parse Netflix subtitles into text, so anything that does this plus Yomichan is going to be enough for most people. If people want to start just immersing, which is the most important part, I'm just gonna point them somewhere else, which is a shame because Migaku is a better experience. I do think Migaku is better, arguably way better, but I don't think it's hundreds of dollars versus free better, especially not with all the stuff that's broken and missing. Migaku's known words thing is super cool and even revolutionary, but I couldn't recommend it even if I wanted to because it doesn't fucking work. I'll leave a link to Yomichan in the description. So this is the latest episode of my series on learning Japanese with anime. I hope you found something you could take away from it. If you haven't seen the other episodes, you can watch them right here, as well as my other videos on learning Japanese. As always, thank you so much for your time, friends, and I will see you in the next video.